Welcome my favorite people, the rare gems. Sometimes the people you lose are not losses. They are answers to prayers you were too afraid to pray. There are seasons when a Sigma female may wonder why certain people keep disappearing from her life, why promising relationships suddenly collapse, or why opportunities she desperately wanted somehow never work out. From the outside, it can look like bad luck. From her perspective, it can feel even more confusing because she may not understand what she is being protected from. But divine protection is not always dramatic. Sometimes it appears through small details, uncomfortable feelings, unexpected delays, strange changes in someone's behavior, or circumstances that quietly create distance between her and the wrong people. And this is where things become interesting. A closed door can look like rejection until time reveals what was behind it. A failed relationship can feel heartbreaking until she discovers the character she was about to trust. A friendship ending can feel painful until she realizes how much negativity she had been absorbing. In this video, we are going deeper than the usual ideas about spiritual protection. We will explore 11 signs that may suggest God is creating distance between a Sigma female and people who could bring unnecessary harm into her life. Some signs may be subtle, others may be surprisingly uncomfortable. So watch until the end for a better understanding of how these patterns can appear in everyday life. And while you watch, share your thoughts in the comments. If this message speaks to you, share it with someone who may need it and subscribe to join our community. Now let's get started. The rare gems. Number 1. God makes certain people dislike her before they have a reason to. Sometimes the first warning is irrational hostility. The strange thing about divine protection is that it does not always feel like protection when it first happens. Sometimes it feels like rejection, misunderstanding, or even unfair treatment. A Sigma female may meet someone who seems strangely uncomfortable around her from the beginning. She has been polite. She has not insulted them. She has not competed with them. She may have barely spoken to them, yet they already seem irritated by her. They may question her intentions, make unnecessary remarks, become competitive, or treat her with coldness for reasons she cannot understand. Naturally, she may wonder, what did I even do? This is where discernment becomes important. Not every person who dislikes you is secretly evil, and not every uncomfortable relationship is a message from God. Sometimes people simply misunderstand each other. But there are moments when someone's unexplained hostility becomes clearer with time. For example, imagine a woman being introduced to someone who immediately seems determined to undermine her. She initially feels embarrassed and wonders whether she has done something wrong. Months later, she discovers that this same person has a pattern of manipulating friendships, spreading private information, and creating conflict wherever they go. Suddenly, that early discomfort looks very different. The important lesson is not to become paranoid. It is to pay attention. Sometimes God allows a person's true attitude toward you to appear before you become emotionally attached to them. Their rejection can create distance before you have any reason to create it yourself. Their coldness may prevent a friendship from becoming deep. Their jealousy may expose their character early. And this can be uncomfortable because we naturally want to be understood. But sometimes being misunderstood by the wrong person is far safer than being accepted by them. So if someone dislikes you without a clear reason, do not immediately fight to change their opinion. Observe, stay respectful, keep your boundaries. Give time enough room to reveal what your emotions cannot see yet. Sometimes the closed door makes sense only after you discover what was waiting behind it. Number 2. Her life keeps separating her from people who feed her worst traits. Some relationships do not merely hurt her, they awaken the ugliest version of her. There is a kind of protection that is easy to misunderstand, because nothing dramatic happens. Nobody gets exposed, nobody gets caught doing something terrible. Instead, the relationship simply starts falling apart, the friendship becomes distant, the environment changes, or life keeps creating reasons for her to move in another direction. And sometimes, that separation is necessary because certain people bring out a version of her that she does not even recognize. A Sigma female may be naturally calm, thoughtful, and emotionally controlled, but put her around the wrong person long enough and something can change. She may become suspicious because she is constantly being lied to. She may become jealous because she is constantly being compared. She may become angry because every conversation turns into an argument. She may even become obsessed with proving herself to someone who keeps making her feel inadequate. That is the part people often miss. A toxic relationship does not always destroy you overnight. Sometimes it slowly teaches you behaviors that were never part of your character. Consider a woman who becomes involved with someone who constantly plays mind games. At first, she tries to understand them. Eventually, she starts checking messages, questioning every conversation, becoming suspicious of innocent situations, and reacting to things she would normally ignore. One day, she looks at herself and realizes, "This is not who I used to be." That realization can be painful, but it can also be the beginning of freedom. Sometimes God protects you by making certain connections uncomfortable enough that you finally stop forcing them to work. A friendship may fade, a relationship may collapse, a particular environment may become unbearable. At first, you may think you are losing something valuable. Later, you may realize you were losing something that was damaging you. Not every separation means someone else was evil. Sometimes the deeper issue is that the relationship brought out unhealthy patterns in both people. And if leaving helps you become calmer, wiser, kinder, and more emotionally stable, that separation may have served a purpose. Real protection is not only about keeping bad people away from you. Sometimes it is about helping you become someone you are proud to be again. Number 3, she experiences protection through timing that looks like bad luck. She misses the flight. The deal collapses. The relationship ends. The invitation gets cancelled. The money does not arrive. The plan falls apart at the last minute. Sometimes the most frustrating moment in a woman's life is not a disaster. It is an interruption. Everything is arranged. The bags are packed. The money is ready. The meeting is confirmed. The relationship seems to be moving forward. Then suddenly, something goes wrong. The flight is missed. The business deal collapses. Someone cancels an important invitation. A payment is delayed. A relationship ends just when she thought it was becoming serious. And she asks, "Why does this always happen to me?" But there is something humbling about time. We judge situations from the moment they happen, while life eventually reveals what we could not see. Imagine a Sigma female preparing to travel for an opportunity she has been waiting months to receive. She arrives late because of an unexpected delay and misses the flight. She is frustrated, angry, and convinced that she has just lost something important. A few days later, she discovers that the meeting she was traveling for was cancelled anyway, and the people involved were dealing with serious problems she knew nothing about. Suddenly, missing that flight does not feel quite the same. Of course, not every inconvenience is a divine message. Sometimes a missed flight is simply a missed flight. Sometimes a deal fails because the other person changed their mind. Life is complicated. But there are moments when a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Something keeps falling apart, and later she realizes that forcing it to happen would have created a much bigger problem. That is why timing can be so difficult to understand. Protection does not always arrive looking beautiful. Sometimes it arrives as disappointment. Sometimes it comes disguised as delay. Sometimes it looks like a door closing when she was desperately trying to open it. The wisdom is learning not to make permanent conclusions from temporary frustration. She can be disappointed without believing her life is against her. She can grieve what did not happen while remaining open to the possibility that something unseen protected her from consequences she was not prepared to face. Sometimes the answer to "Why did this fall apart?" only becomes clear after the dust settles. Number 4. She keeps missing opportunities that later reveal their hidden cost. Not every closed door is punishment. Some are protection disguised as disappointment. Sometimes a closed door hurts because she had already imagined what was waiting on the other side. A Sigma female may apply for a job she desperately wants, only to be rejected. She may meet someone who appears perfect, yet the relationship never develops. She may be invited into a business partnership that looks financially promising, but something keeps delaying the agreement. At the time, she may feel frustrated and wonder why opportunities seem to disappear just when she is ready to embrace them. Then months later, the hidden cost becomes visible. The job she wanted turns out to have a toxic work environment. The person she wanted to date reveals habits that would have caused her serious emotional pain. The business partnership collapses because the people involved were dishonest with money. Suddenly, what once felt like rejection starts looking very different. This is why hindsight can be so powerful. Sometimes we judge a closed door based on what we wanted, rather than what was actually waiting behind it. We see the salary, the attractive person, the exciting opportunity, the impressive connections, or the lifestyle it could provide. We do not see the arguments, manipulation, debt, betrayal, stress, or compromises that may be hiding underneath. Of course, not every missed opportunity is divine protection. Sometimes we simply make mistakes, arrive too late, or lose something because of circumstances beyond our control. Wisdom means knowing the difference between faith and wishful thinking. But when certain doors repeatedly close despite sincere effort, it may be worth stepping back instead of forcing them open. Perhaps the disappointment is creating space for better judgment. Perhaps the delay is giving her time to mature before receiving something she once thought she was ready for. Perhaps rejection is saving her from a price she could not yet afford to pay. Sometimes the blessing is not getting what you wanted. Sometimes the blessing is discovering why you were not supposed to have it. Number 5. She loses people right before becoming vulnerable to them. This one can hurt badly. Someone may disappear just when she was beginning to trust them. Some people leave at the exact moment you were preparing to let them get closer, and that timing can feel almost cruel. A Sigma female may spend months watching someone carefully before she finally starts lowering her guard. She begins sharing personal things. She starts trusting their words. She tells them about parts of her life she normally keeps private. Maybe she even starts imagining a future where this person has a permanent place in her life. Then suddenly, they change. They become distant. They stop communicating. They betray her confidence. They disappear without a proper explanation. Or the relationship simply falls apart for reasons she cannot understand. The painful part is that she may have been ready to give them something they had not earned. Deeper access to her heart. That is why some endings hurt more than others. She is not only grieving the person, she is grieving the version of the relationship she was preparing to build. But sometimes the timing tells a deeper story. Consider a woman who has spent months becoming close to someone she believes is trustworthy. She is finally ready to reveal a deeply personal part of her life when the person suddenly walks away. She feels rejected and wonders what she did wrong. Later, she discovers that this person had been sharing other people's private information and manipulating those closest to them. She may never know exactly what would have happened if she had opened up completely, but she can recognize what the timing prevented. This does not mean every person who leaves was sent away by God. People leave for countless reasons. And sometimes relationships end simply because two people are not meant to continue together. But there are moments when losing someone protects you from giving them access to something they would eventually misuse. And perhaps that is why certain endings feel strangely painful and strangely peaceful at the same time. You mourn what you lost, but somewhere underneath the sadness, you realize something important. They did not leave after you gave them everything. They left before they had the opportunity to take what they never deserved. Number 6. She feels drawn away from places where everyone else wants her to stay. Sometimes the strongest reason to leave a place is not something you can explain immediately. It is simply the growing feeling that you no longer belong there. A Sigma female may suddenly lose interest in a friendship group, workplace, relationship, social circle, or environment that everyone else seems perfectly comfortable with. Nothing dramatic has happened. Nobody has openly betrayed her. There may not even be one specific incident she can point to. Yet something inside her keeps saying, "It is time to move." That can be confusing, especially when people around her think she is making a mistake. They may say, "Why would you leave? Everything is going well." They may remind her of the connections, opportunities, comfort, or history she has with those people. She may struggle to explain herself because she does not have a neat list of reasons. Sometimes understanding comes after distance. Consider a woman who gradually stops spending time with a particular group. At first, she cannot explain why. She simply notices that she feels mentally exhausted after every gathering. Months later, she realizes that those conversations were built around gossip, jealousy, constant comparison, and talking about other people's failures. She had slowly become more negative without noticing it. Leaving did not immediately solve everything, but distance gave her enough clarity to recognize what constant exposure had been doing to her. This is where discernment matters. Not every uncomfortable feeling means God is telling you to leave. Sometimes we want to escape situations simply because they challenge us, require patience, or expose areas where we need to grow. That is why wisdom requires honesty, prayer, reflection, and time. But when the desire for distance keeps returning, and the environment consistently pulls her toward habits, attitudes, or behaviors she knows are unhealthy, she should not dismiss that feeling simply because other people are comfortable staying. Sometimes God changes your direction before He explains the reason. You may leave before you understand. You may lose interest before you see the problem. And you may only appreciate the wisdom of that decision after you have enough distance to recognize what you were slowly becoming. Sometimes leaving is not running away from your life. Sometimes it is making room to become yourself again. Number 7. People trying to destroy her reputation. Accidentally expose themselves. There is something fascinating about a person who works extremely hard to destroy someone's reputation and eventually ends up revealing more about themselves than about the person they are attacking. A Sigma female may suddenly discover that someone has been talking about her behind her back. They tell people exaggerated stories. They twist ordinary situations. They leave out important details and present themselves as the innocent victim. Before long, several people have heard a completely different version of events. Her first instinct may be to defend herself against every accusation. And honestly, that reaction is understandable. Nobody enjoys watching their character being questioned, especially when they know the story is being deliberately distorted. But sometimes fighting every accusation gives the drama even more oxygen. People who constantly tell stories eventually have to maintain those stories. One person hears one version, another hears something slightly different. Details change. Timelines stop making sense. The person who seemed convincing at first begins explaining too much, repeating the same accusations, bringing up old situations, and searching for new people to convince. Then something interesting happens. People start asking questions. For example, Someone might claim that a Sigma female mistreated them months ago. Later, another person hears the same story, but notices that important details do not match what they previously heard. Then someone else remembers witnessing the original situation and realizes that the story has been heavily altered. The person trying to expose her accidentally exposes themselves. This does not mean she should sit back and allow serious lies to spread unchecked. There are situations where speaking clearly, keeping evidence, correcting false information, or seeking proper help is absolutely necessary. But she does not have to turn every accusation into a public battle. Sometimes consistency becomes stronger than explanation. If her behavior remains steady while someone else constantly changes their story, people eventually notice the difference. That is why time can be such a powerful witness. A manipulator may control a conversation, but they cannot permanently control every person's observations. Eventually, patterns become visible. And sometimes the most powerful defense is not a louder argument. It is allowing reality to keep happening until the person who created the false story becomes the clearest evidence against it. Number 8, she has an unusual ability to walk away before her anger takes over. There is a kind of strength that does not come from winning an argument. It comes from knowing when continuing the argument could turn you into someone you never wanted to become. A Sigma female may experience situations where anger feels completely justified. Someone betrays her, humiliates her, lies about her, or deliberately tries to hurt her. She knows exactly what she could say to make that person feel small. She may even have enough information to expose their hypocrisy in front of everyone, and for a moment, revenge can feel satisfying. But then something changes. Instead of sending the message, she deletes it. Instead of revealing the secret, she keeps it private. Instead of returning cruelty with cruelty, she walks away. That decision can be much harder than retaliation. For example, imagine a woman discovering that someone she trusted has been spreading private information about her. She could easily reveal that person's own secrets and embarrass them publicly. She knows it would work. She knows people would probably take her side. But she also realizes something important. If she uses someone's private pain as a weapon simply because they hurt her, she has allowed their behavior to change her character. So she chooses silence and distance instead. That does not mean she is weak. It means she understands that every battle has a price, and sometimes the price is becoming emotionally tied to the person you are trying to escape. This can be a form of spiritual protection. Perhaps God is not only protecting her from what another person might do to her. Perhaps He is protecting her from what prolonged anger could make her do. Because anger can feel powerful while quietly controlling you. You replay conversations. You plan responses. You imagine their downfall. You keep checking what they are doing. Eventually, the person who hurt you is no longer physically present, yet they are still occupying your mind. Walking away breaks that connection. She does not have to pretend the betrayal never happened. She does not have to excuse harmful behavior. She simply refuses to let someone else's darkness become part of her identity. Sometimes the greatest victory is not making someone regret hurting you. It is leaving the situation with your character intact. Number 9. She receives warnings through small details rather than dramatic signs. Protection does not always arrive as some spectacular spiritual event. Sometimes the warning that protects you is so small that you could easily dismiss it. A Sigma female may not receive some dramatic sign telling her, "This person cannot be trusted." Instead, she notices something that simply does not make sense. Someone tells her one story today and gives a different version tomorrow. A financial figure does not match what she was previously told. A message accidentally reaches her that was never meant for her eyes. Someone suddenly becomes defensive when she asks a simple question. Individually, These details may seem insignificant, but sometimes one small detail changes everything. Consider a woman who is considering going into business with someone she trusts. Everything appears promising. The person seems experienced, confident, and convincing. Then she notices that one financial figure does not match the documents she was shown earlier. She asks about it, and instead of receiving a clear explanation, the person becomes strangely defensive. She decides to investigate further and discovers several other inconsistencies. That first detail did not prove everything. It simply gave her a reason to look closer. This is where discernment becomes powerful. It is not about becoming suspicious of everyone or treating every mistake as evidence of evil. Honest people can forget things. People can make mistakes. Numbers can be entered incorrectly. Messages can be misunderstood. The difference is often found in the pattern. One inconsistency may deserve a question. Several unexplained inconsistencies deserve attention. Sometimes God protects a woman by giving her just enough information to slow her down before she makes a decision she cannot easily reverse. The warning may come through something ordinary that other people would overlook. A changed tone, a strange reaction, a missing detail, a story that suddenly does not fit. And perhaps the wisdom is not simply noticing the warning, but having the patience to investigate it before becoming emotionally committed. She does not have to accuse anyone immediately. She does not have to create a dramatic confrontation. She can pause, observe, ask reasonable questions, and let more information come to light. Because sometimes protection does not shout. It whispers through details. And the person who learns to pay attention may discover that the smallest clue was the beginning of the biggest revelation. Number 10. She is protected by delayed understanding. Sometimes the hardest part of being protected is not losing something. It is losing it without understanding why. A Sigma female may pray sincerely about a relationship, friendship, career opportunity, or major decision. She may believe everything is finally falling into place, only for it to disappear without warning. She asks God for an explanation, but nothing immediately makes sense. There is no clear answer, no obvious reason, and no satisfying explanation for why something she deeply wanted was taken away. That silence can be painful. She may spend months wondering whether she made a mistake. Maybe she should have tried harder. Maybe she should have stayed. Maybe she misunderstood the situation. When you are emotionally attached to something, it is difficult to imagine that losing it could actually be good for you. Then time passes, and something changes. She learns something about the person she once trusted. She discovers what was happening behind the scenes. She sees how another person's life unfolded after she was no longer involved. Or she grows into a completely different version of herself and finally understands why that particular chapter could not continue. Suddenly, an old disappointment makes sense. For example, she may once have been devastated when a relationship ended. At the time, she could only see the person she loved and the future she had imagined. Years later, she recognizes patterns she could not see while emotionally attached. The controlling behavior, dishonesty, constant conflict, or unhealthy dependence becomes obvious from a distance. The painful truth is that understanding sometimes requires emotional distance. God may allow her to understand later, because understanding too early would not necessarily change her decision. She might have argued with the warning. She might have defended the person. She might have tried to reopen a door that needed to remain closed. Delayed understanding can therefore become its own form of protection. She does not have to understand every closed door immediately. Sometimes faith means accepting that the explanation has not arrived yet, and one day she may look back at something she once cried over and quietly realize, "Now I understand why I had to lose it." The silence was not necessarily abandonment. Sometimes the answer was simply waiting for time to reveal what emotion could not see. Number 11. She stops needing to prove that someone is bad. There comes a point when a Sigma female stops trying to convince everyone that someone treated her badly. Earlier in life, she may have felt the need to explain every detail. She wanted people to know what was said, what happened, who lied, who betrayed her, and why she decided to walk away. Sometimes she wanted others to confirm that she was right, because being misunderstood after being hurt can feel almost as painful as the original betrayal. But maturity changes that. She eventually realizes that she does not need to build a case against someone just to justify protecting herself. If a person's behavior repeatedly crosses her boundaries, disrespects her values, manipulates her emotions, or makes her uncomfortable, she is allowed to create distance without gathering an audience first. That does not mean she should judge people unfairly. It means she has learned that she does not need unanimous agreement before making a personal decision. For example, if a friend repeatedly lies to her, shares private information, and apologizes only when confronted, she does not need 10 other people to confirm that the friendship has become unhealthy. She can acknowledge the pattern and make a decision based on what she has experienced. There is tremendous freedom in that. She stops wasting energy trying to make everyone understand her side and starts paying more attention to what the situation has already taught her. And perhaps this is where divine protection becomes much deeper than simply avoiding bad experiences. God's protection does not mean a Sigma female will never experience betrayal, rejection, loneliness, financial disappointment, heartbreak, or humiliation. She may experience all of them. The protection may be what happens inside her afterward. She becomes wiser without becoming cruel, more careful without becoming paranoid, stronger without becoming heartless. She learns to recognize patterns earlier. Her boundaries become clearer. Her judgment becomes sharper. The person who tried to break her may have expected bitterness to destroy her. Instead, the experience teaches her discernment. That may be the deeper protection, not a life where nothing painful happens, but a life where painful experiences do not get permanent ownership of her character. Eventually, she understands that some battles were never meant to be won through revenge. Some were meant to teach her who deserves access to her life, and the woman who learns that lesson becomes extremely difficult to manipulate, because she no longer needs to hate someone in order to walk away from them. In final words, sometimes protection does not feel like being saved. Sometimes it feels like being redirected. If there is one lesson from everything we have discussed, it is this: divine protection does not always arrive in a form we immediately recognize. Sometimes it looks like losing someone. Sometimes it looks like a door closing. Sometimes it is a strange delay, an uncomfortable feeling, or discovering the truth about someone before they become deeply connected to your life. But there is another side to this. Being protected by God does not mean a Sigma female will never experience pain. She can still be betrayed, disappointed, misunderstood, rejected, or deeply hurt. What matters is what those experiences produce in her. Does she become wiser or simply more bitter? Does she learn discernment without becoming suspicious of everyone? Does she create healthier boundaries without losing her compassion? Does she walk away from harmful people without allowing hatred to control her? That is where the deeper signs become meaningful. Sometimes the person who hurt her becomes the reason she learns to recognize manipulation. Sometimes the closed door prevents a future problem she could never have predicted. Sometimes losing someone creates the space she needed to rebuild herself. So if certain people keep disappearing from your life, do not automatically assume you are being punished or rejected. Take a step back. Observe the patterns. Ask what the experience is teaching you. And most importantly, do not let the people God may be protecting you from determine the person you become. If this message connected with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who may need it, and subscribe to join our community. Thank you for your support, and God bless you.